You're listening to the #1 podcast for nonprofit leaders, getting your nonprofit fully funded. This is the Fundraising Masterminds Podcast. So this particular person who's on YouTube is saying these things don't work.
Yeah.
You know,
that's just wrong, Jason.
It's
just wrong. I hate to say, I don't think they truly understand the difference between development and fundraising. Remember that your vision dinner is one tool in your tool belt. And no one should be putting all their eggs in one basket, but the vision dinner is a terrific way to surface new donors and to cultivate and to lift your current donors.
Well, welcome back to another episode here at the Fundraising Masterminds Podcast. We're so glad to have you with us. My name is Jason Galasinski, and with me, my co-host, Jim Dempsey.
Hi, Jason.
How are you today, Jim?
Just great. It's a great day.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be talking about 9 ways your board members should be involved in your annual banquet. Now, Jim, before we get into this episode, we have a little bit of a problem with the word banquet.
Well, I refer to it, Jason, as the B word because it is not my most favorite word in the vocabulary.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are referring to an annual event that involves a dinner, right? It involves vision casting. It involves fundraising. So this event that we're talking about, you know, back in the 70s and 80s, it was called a banquet, right,
Yeah,
Jim?
that was a popular term in those days.
Way before my time. So then it moved to kind of fellowship dinner, and
Right.
then now it's moving to vision dinner / gala.
Right.
I think gala is more of a popular term, but
Yeah.
we prefer the term vision dinner.
Well, we do because it's a happy medium. I think sometimes when people hear gala, they think of it being a lot of pomp and circumstance, and that everyone's wearing a tuxedo and gowns and ballroom gowns. But I mean, it still is a good term, and a lot of our dinners use the term gala. But vision dinner, the vision casting component, is what's important.
Now, I still know like hundreds, maybe thousands of organizations that still use the term banquet.
Yeah.
And why do you think they're latched onto that term?
Well, some popular, nonprofit organizations, associations and things still coach and teach their member organizations to use the word banquet. And I think it's just one of those old school things that just they've latched onto and they can't release.
So what is old school about the term banquet?
Well, old school in that it conjures up the thoughts of church basement and rubber chicken. You know, the old adage, what is the official bird of the Christian ministry? It's the rubber chicken. And it's chaining up the doors to make sure that people don't leave until they're bled dry with all the giving that they could possibly give. It's just an old school term that I believe is outdated, and it conjures up the wrong feelings of what we want to do.
Yeah. I've often been on the phone with people where they say, well, I know what a banquet is and I know what a gala is, but what's this vision dinner thing all about, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's the idea of why we are going with a term that is less popular, because it causes people to just say, what is this? I've never heard of that.
Right. Yeah.
And it kind of it gets them interested in something different.
Right.
So one of the things that we want to talk about in today's episode, specifically about the board, is how a vision dinner can be used to unify the board.
Right.
Because so often we are working with nonprofits and, the director is trying to raise money. They're trying to do a ton. And the board is just sitting there, going, well, good luck with that, and they're just throwing in a couple little tidbits and things. And the director kind of feels like they're on an island all by themselves. And they're thinking, well, I'd love my board to be involved, but I don't know what they could do because they're busy and they got other things going on. So this episode, we really wanted to focus on why the vision dinner can really help to get your board engaged.
Right.
And these aren't just tic-tacky things. These are literally 9 ways that your board can get involved.
That you can start today.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jason, I think the problem that exists out there is unrealistic expectations. I think that we don't, as leaders, when we are crafting the expectations for the board, we don't include development. We don't include working with major donors. We don't include working with events as part of the expectation. We talk about governance. We talk about management, fiscal responsibility, but we don't talk enough about the board's role in development, and especially drilling down to their annual banquet. Those are the kinds of things we don't talk about enough.
Yeah, and if you want to learn more about that, we have another episode. I believe it's episode 45.
Well, it's one of our highest rated.
It's a really good episode.
A lot of views. So
it's called 9 Ways Your Nonprofit Board Should Be Involved in Fundraising.
Yep.
That gives more of a high-level overview of what the board should be doing from a nonprofit perspective.
Right.
But this episode, we're going to be drilling into the Vision Dinner specifically.
Right.
We often say that the Vision Dinner is part of our broader strategy of we're trying to win new partners to our cause. We're trying to keep them through cultivation, and we're trying to lift them to higher levels of giving. Yeah. And the perfect Vision Dinner is our winning event. You need to have some active way of constantly winning people to your cause. And if you're not, you're going to be plateauing, right?
Well, it's so important, Jason, to remember that your Vision Dinner is one tool in your tool belt. Mm-hmm. And no one should be putting all their eggs in one basket, and especially not in a dinner or an event. Ultimately, your greatest return on investment is going to come from face-to-face relationships. But you'll find that the Vision Dinner is a terrific way to surface new donors and to cultivate and to lift your current donors.
Yeah. And if you're a nonprofit leader, you're running an organization where you feel like, number one, we do an annual banquet, but it's kind of plateaued. We've worked with a lot of pregnancy centers and homeless shelters who are doing annual banquets every year, but they raise the same amount of money every year. They have the same people come in every year. And it's almost like everything's been pre-programmed. They know what they're going to be raising.
Right.
It doesn't really matter, who the speaker is. They're going to write their $500 check, and it's always the same, and nothing changes. Yeah. We're trying to change that.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. If you're raising less than $100,000 at your dinner, I think you ought to go back to the drawing board and to say, is this really worth it? Is this what I should be doing? Because that is really the minimum. That's the basement we see for so many of our dinners. It's $100,000 or more.
Yep. Or if you are raising 200 or 300, but you've been at 200 or 300 forever. Like remember Rebecca Ray's?
Sure. Yeah.
She came to us. I think they were raising an average of 250 to 300,
which for some pregnancy centers would be unbelievable. I mean, there's some that would, give their right arm for 250,000. Yeah. But like you said, they were plateaued. They weren't moving. Yeah. They weren't growing at all.
Yep.
What was the end result with Rebecca? You want to remind me, Jason?
Yeah. Well, they came to us being stuck for a while, and then they went through the program. They were doing, I would say 70% of the stuff that we recommend, but they just needed a fresh infusement,
little tweaks,
and we upgraded their banquet experience, and they came in at 575,000. Their goal was 500. They wanted to get to that next level.
Yeah.
But, that's an extreme example. We had another example of Becky, at Options Now.
Absolutely.
They were kind of stuck at the 150 level, and we got them to 300. So I like to say, if you're making less than 100,000 at your annual banquet, we can definitely get you past that number. Right. But if you're kind of stuck at a certain number, implementing the Vision Dinner stuff, especially if you're going from the old banquet model to the Vision Dinner model, we believe we can get you 50% more than what you're currently doing.
And if I remember right, Becky'd been doing dinners for maybe 40 years.
Yeah, like 20.
And so, it was a long time. Absolutely. Yep. And so,
So one of the things that we wanted to zone in on with this episode is how the Vision Dinner can be a unifying factor with the board.
Yeah.
So let's get into the 9 ways.
Okay.
All right. Now we're going to go through these pretty fast. Okay. Yeah. So, first, the Vision Dinner can get the board involved by being a table host.
Right. Exactly. Well, Jason, our model, of course, relies on filling a table. It's not buying a table. It's not selling tickets. We've found that providing an opportunity for people to come without a cost, and also for a board member to not have to be buying a table just is so much more effective. But it's important as a table host that the board member bring the best qualified people individuals who have a heart for our cause, are interested in at least hearing about an opportunity to give. So being an effective table host, not just being a table host, buying a table, selling tickets, getting warm bodies, but getting the right people there. That can be one of the most effective ways. And hopefully it will be more than one table, that they might be looking at 2, 3, 4, or even helping to recruit more table hosts through their network and their friends.
Yeah. Well, and that leads me to the second point, which is that the board members should be recruiting table hosts. Now, like you said, you want them to be hosting a table.
Right, themselves.
But one of the things that we do in the Perfect Vision Dinner Mentorship Program, almost like week 2, is we do a name-storming session with the board. And this is our...
It's a game changer, Jason.
This is a major...
This is one of the things that are the foundation of what we do.
Yeah. And having a name-storming session with your board is such a great thing. It gets everyone together in a room. We give them a description of what your ideal table host should be. And like one of the things we tell you in the program is we're not trying to get just 300 warm bodies in a room. We're trying to get 300 of the right people.
That's right. I always say I'd rather have 250 people who love us than 500 people who could care less and are just there to hear a big name speaker. One
of our goals in the Vision Dinner Program is to add in, new people who maybe haven't been a table host before, but they're qualified. So you give them kind of this nice description of this is the kind of person that you want to be a table host. And as a board, we name-storm, 100, 150 names of people that would fit that description. And then the board gets involved in calling those people, inviting them to be a table host. And that's one of the ways that we really help to get new people involved in the organization.
Jason, early on, you mentioned about just bringing the same people back over and over and over again at your dinner. That is replication. That's what I refer to it. The name storming and the table host strategy is about multiplication. It's about getting new table hosts every year and tapping into the network of those individuals. What's your goal of the name storming is to bring in networkers into one room all together. And people ask me, well, why don't we just send out a spreadsheet and let people add to it? There's a certain special dynamic that happens when you've got a handful of really movers and shakers in a room and they're all thinking about someone's name. One person throws out a name, the other person says, well, what about their business partner? What about their friend? I know this person better. I can contact this person. I have a better contact. It just builds a dynamic. So when you've got a board member that's giving 20, 25, 30 names of people and they're agreeing to contact all those people, you're getting into networks that you never got into. That's why our model is so unique and so different. That's why we see such dynamic growth, is because of our name storming time.
Yeah, and really this is something that the board should be owning. Like if the board is going to do anything, this is like leading from example in the sense of like the board technically owns the organization.
They do.
And they need to be the ones kind of leading the charge with like, hey, we're going to do this vision dinner thing. Let me be the first one to kind of throw out some names and get some calls. And this is something the board can very easily do. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. You're not getting into the weeds of, graphic design or administrative stuff.
Micromanaging the organization. This is a great way. We talk about the board's responsibilities being fiduciary responsibilities. That's what they need to have. And too often, board members think that translates into spending money. And it does. There's a component of that. But it's also their responsibility of helping to raise money for the organization. And really, there's almost no easier way to help raise money for your organization than just simply to invite people to a dinner, to have great fellowship, to hear a great program, and to be given an opportunity to give. No brainer.
Yep. So the first way that we mentioned was to be a table, host a table. Second way is recruiting table hosts. Third way is to be a volunteer.
Yeah.
Now there's a number of ways that you can volunteer as a board member. Jim, could you list off like 4 or 5?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, in our Perfect Vision dinner strategy, there's 4 key positions, and certainly they can serve in one of the 4 key positions. They could be the dinner coordinator, they could be the reservations coordinator, the volunteer coordinator, the table host coordinator. But we've probably got a dozen other positions: greeters, ushers, registration workers, counters. There's a whole network of individuals that pull off a dinner like this.
Yeah.
And your board member can serve in any of those, no matter how busy they are. They can volunteer and be part of those things.
I know, yeah. And one of the things I love about the Perfect Vision Dinner program that we coach people in is, there's really opportunities for someone who's super, super busy,
right,
or someone who is not busy at all. They're retired,
looking to take on another responsibility.
And so there's no excuse.
Right.
Like a board member really should not say, "I'm too busy.
Right.
I've got, I'm not interested."
Yeah.
If that's the attitude, and they can't even show up to be a registration worker or a counter at the end of the dinner,
or just to stand in front of an easel with a sign that says the dinner's down this way, registration's this way.
Right.
They're getting dressed up, they're coming anyway. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So if the board doesn't even want to do that, then you might want to question whether they should even be on your board.
Agreed.
Honestly.
Yep. Give, get, or get off, Jason. That's the one of the old methods.
Another way your board can be involved in the vision dinner is by recruiting volunteers.
Absolutely. Yeah, because there's such a broad network of people that are needed to help to run the dinner. Getting your board members to recruit their friends and their family members is just a great way for them to help out that way as well. Oftentimes people will ask me, Jim, do we need to recruit a whole mass of people for the event and bring those in for the night of the event? And I always will say, no, rely on the people who are coming anyway. Those people are going to come. They planned on giving.
Yeah.
Why don't you just use those people as part of your volunteer base?
Actually, that's a good point. I actually talked to an individual a few months ago, and their whole reason why they didn't want to do a dinner is because they felt like, well, we don't know 50 volunteers. Right. We don't know all these people. The way that you guys talk about this thing, it sounds like this massive event, and we're going to have all these, we have to recruit all these people.
Whole infrastructure of people.
Yeah. And it's like, no, you really don't need all that. All you really need is you need your board to get engaged.
That's right.
And if your board just does a fraction of these things, if your board is involved in the name storming, if your board is involved in recruiting volunteers, if your board is involved in serving, every board member get involved in serving in some capacity, you're going to be fine. Because again, like you said, most of the people who help out at the dinner are people who are attending.
They're coming in anyway.
They don't know that they're going to be volunteering. But some people think that, you got to have everything all figured out before you even pick up a pen and get started. Right. And the way that we train is, it starts with the director, just getting the vision, and then it moves to the board. Then we recruit the table hosts. And then once we get that ball rolling, then we start looking for people. Yeah,
four key roles to be in the leadership, and then build from there. Yeah,
and it's more of a fluid process than I've got to get all my eggs figured out before, and then then it all like just flows from there. It's more of like starts with one person, then moves and kind of trickles down, and we've got a 21-week period of time, so we got plenty of time to recruit all these people. So it works really well. Yeah. Another way that your board can be involved is by speaking at the event.
Absolutely. Having a key role in the program. Yeah. I'll tell you, one of the most effective MCs that I ever had was a board member who served with me on a pregnancy center. He was our board chair at the time. I don't think I'd have any problem saying his name, Mark Joseph. I loved working with Mark. He's a dear friend of mine, even to this day, and that was 20 years ago. But he was an unbelievable MC, polished. He's a financial advisor by trade, CPA. Now, you would think a CPA is going to be a number cruncher, a boring guy. He's anything but that. He's effervescent. He's vivacious. He's just a great communicator with a very dry sense of humor that just made everyone laugh. And he was great in that position. But also, we effectively use board members for our ministry update and appeals. They do a great job, and even board members to give the donor testimony as well too, because a lot of board members are givers and donors as well. So a lot of positions to be able to use your board members.
Yep. The sixth way that your board can be involved in the Vision Dinner is by helping to develop a matching gift program.
Oh, boy. And one of the keys to the success of the Perfect Vision Dinner strategy is the matching gift effort. It, as I've said so often, it's a game changer. If you can get your board members to agree to be the lead gifts, so you would set a goal, say $25,000, $30,000, $50,000 is what you want to get in advance commitments, so that the night of the dinner you can say to people, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a great opportunity. A handful of friends of the ministry have agreed to match every gift up to $50,000. That is going to really make your organization soar, and your board members can be those people who effectively make those early commitments.
But they can be those people, or they might know people
exactly
who can do that.
Right.
So that's one of the other things is they can engage with major donors.
Great point, Jason.
So that's our next point. And board members tend to be leaders of other things. They tend to be community leaders, and so they're well networked with other people in that same status.
Yeah.
So really, they can help raise the funds for the matching gift program as well.
Right.
They can either do it themselves, or they can help find those people.
Right. Well, I always say that they can be involved with major donors before, during, and after your dinner. Mm-hmm. The before, certainly they can help to recruit major donors to your dinner. They can recruit them to be table hosts. They can recruit them to sit at their table. They can recruit them to get matching gifts, but they can just ensure that your major donors get there because of their relationship and their credibility. They can also be there to welcome and to warmly greet those individuals who are major donors, make them feel comfortable the night of the dinner. But afterwards, they can also be part of the effort to write, call, and visit your major donors at the end.
Yeah. The eighth way that they can be involved in the Vision Dinner is by casting vision. That's one of the things of the Vision Dinner is we always say at the very, very beginning, I think it's like page 9 in our workbook, is we help people develop a 5-year vision.
Right.
And our goal in the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program is to help you kind of step away from the day-to-day and just think, well, why am I called to this? And what exactly does this organization exist to do?
Right.
What are we trying to accomplish? Are we trying to rescue babies? Are we trying to adopt kids into new homes? Are we trying to get people off the streets? And what is our dream with that? What would that look like if funding was not an issue?
Right.
If someone were to just write a check for $10 million and anything was possible, right? What would be your dream? Mm-hmm. A lot of us, we don't even know what we would do with the money, even if we had it, which is maybe why we don't have it. So
the big issue that I've had for decades is that too many dinners I went to over the years, it just seemed like the organization was just asking for people to give to keep the doors open, and just exist. Well, nobody wants to give to an organization just to exist. If they do, they're just giving a tip in a sense. Yeah. But if you really want those significant gifts, you've got to cast vision before people. Scripture says, "Without vision, people perish," and it's exactly that way. It does not inflame the hearts of men and women unless you've got a vision. And so we get everyone who takes the course to dream big dreams and to think about what would this organization look like in 3 to 5 years if money was not an object.
Yeah. And it's a pretty big deal to pull away and to get a vision and to get re-excited. I mean, how many people come into the program kind of thinking that they know where they're going, but then about halfway through when they finally realize, I think we actually could do this.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
this is possible.
Yeah.
Most people come into the program kind of skeptical. It's an investment, and they're like, I don't know if this is going to work. But then once they kind of get in and they realize, wow, these guys really have this thing put together, and they do this a lot, and they realize there's a really good plan.
Yeah. Well, their vision is probably no more than 3 to 6 months. For a Christian school, it's September, and their vision for the future is May. How do we finish the school year in the black? And so that's not a big vision. We're talking, what's it going to look like? How many additional teachers do you want? How many additional classrooms? How many additional students do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want to expand and build a chapel? Do you want to build a chemistry lab? Whatever it is, that's what a vision is.
Yeah. So the last way the board can get involved with the dinner is assisting in follow-up.
Right.
So we have a big follow-up process afterwards where we have 6 different kinds of thank you letters that go out, and we have an appeal process afterwards, and we do all kinds of things, right? For probably a week or 2 after. And we see money coming in even after the vision dinner. The vision dinner is kind of like the catalyst that kind of creates this like wake of momentum.
Right.
And then there's all kinds of things we do afterwards to kind of piggyback off of that momentum. And the board can be very involved with that.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a dinner in Chicago that I did for years. And one of the things that they would always do was they wanted to make sure that before I got on the plane headed back to the Washington, D.C. area from Chicago, was they always wanted to make sure that I got a thank you call myself from one of the board members. And that meant the world to me to hear from a board member. It would have been one thing to hear from the executive director. That would have been nice. But to hear from a board member, there's just another level of respect and credibility when you've got your board members calling and thanking people.
Now, I'm sure there's some people listening who are like, I've heard like there's other YouTubers out there and there's other people out there that are saying, vision dinners don't work. You hear about these people who are raising hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's just pie in the sky thinking that doesn't just really happen. Yeah. Are we really seeing that to be true, Jim?
Well, it's ridiculous. It really is. I just was reading an article from someone who does, professes to be an expert in fundraising, saying, well, if you spend 6 months to do an event and all it does is raise $10,000, that's not a great return on investment for $3,000. Well, if your dinner is just raising $10,000, you shouldn't be doing events, but our events, as a minimum, a basement, say $100,000 or more. And, we really need to be focusing in on what's important. Mm-hmm. Do events still work? They do, Jason. Is that the only thing we should be doing? No way. It should be, as I said very early on, it should be one of the tools in our tool belt. But it's an important tool. It's an important tool for winning people. We see 60 to 70% of our people new at each dinner. It's great for keeping. We use it as a way to keep the base motivated and encouraged. We update them, we share stories, and lifting. What a great way for people to move from one level of giving to the next every year by being challenged.
In fact, it does work, and I can prove it to you right now. If you go to fundraisingmasterminds.net or you scan the QR code on the screen, there are countless testimonies of people. Even if you're on YouTube right now, we have a playlist for customer examples, and those examples are literally regular people. They're not hand selected. We have probably 50 to 60 organizations go through our program every year, and we do a debrief call. That's one of the things that I do right after their dinner is I call them and I say, how did it go? How much did you raise? We get all their numbers and we write it all down. And I would say 90% hit their goal. Yeah. And their goal is usually 100,000 or more.
Yeah. Well, Jason, one of the things that I appreciate, number one, is I think those numbers are very conservative because you're getting them right after their dinner.
Yeah.
And some people can get money in a week to 2 weeks or more afterwards. Number two, these aren't cooked up numbers. Jason, when you send people out to our website to look at a chart, other than changing the name of the organization to really help them with confidentiality, all the numbers are right there in front of us. We open up the books and say, here's how much is raised. You can add it up and you'll come up with $10 million because of all of our efforts in
all our class members from 2024, we had them all go through and, collecting all the totals up, added up to 10 million.
Yeah.
We're actually going to be doing a series starting very soon called the $10 million story. And I'm really excited about that series because we're going to actually be bringing on people that went through the program. We're going to be bringing on someone from a gospel rescue mission. We're going to be bringing on someone from a pregnancy center, maternity home, CEF chapter. Yeah. And we're going to be just hearing their story. These are just regular people, just like you, listening to the podcast, and they just
stepped out in faith.
And they said,
decided we're going to give this a try. We're going to trust God.
And they did it, and it was scary. But they went through the program, they followed the recipe, and they hit their goal.
Absolutely.
And so they're on our sheet now, and you can go to our website. When you go to our website, you can click apply now. And if you scroll down a little bit past the price and what's in it, there's a section there that says a executive summary. And the executive summary has in it this document where we have all the different organizations and what they raised before and what they raised after and the percentage increase. And we even have like how much they spent on the dinner, right? So that's a lot of people say, well, it's okay if you raise $100,000, but what if you spend $100,000 on your dinner? And I was like, you don't spend $100,000 on your dinner. Okay. You spend about a tenth of what you typically raise. So it's about a 10-to-1 return on investment is usually, what we see.
Well, and Jason, it's not all about the money. I know that sounds so trite, but it is about the relationships. And frankly, if that actually happened and you raised $100,000 but spent $100,000, you still would be winning because of the relationship. You brought in new donors, you helped to keep the ones that you had, and you lifted people up to another level. That's not what we're about. We're not about breaking even. No. But even if you broke even, you still would have a huge win because of those other things.
Yeah, but we're not spending $100,000 on our dinners. Not even close. Not even close.
Yeah.
So I mean, this particular person that we won't say her name on YouTube is saying these things don't work.
That's just wrong, Jason. It's just wrong. I hate to say I don't think they truly understand the difference between development and fundraising.
I think if she signed up for the Perfect Vision Dinner Mentorship Program and followed our steps, she would raise $100,000 for her nonprofit. But last I heard, she quit her nonprofit. So I don't know if she's still there.
We're going too deep into who that is, Jason. So.
Well, if you found this to be helpful, we've actually put together a PDF for you that summarizes these 9 ways that board members can get involved. And really, our goal with this episode is to just kind of give you a little bit of inspiration and helping you realize that there are things that you can do to get your board engaged in your organization. And every board member might be resisting to a certain degree because nobody wants to do something new, right? It's always easier to stay where you're at, to be passive, to just kind of go along and do the same thing you've always done. But how many board members have we seen actually attend one of our dinners and they walk away going, wow, that was like one of the best things we ever did as an organization. So if you can, as a leader of your organization, if you can just really drive home why this is so important. And that's what we're trying to do with this PDF. So if you scan the QR code on the screen, it will take you to a landing page where you can download this PDF. And we put together the 9 ways your board members can be involved in your organization, as well as the 9 ways that your board members can be involved in the vision dinner. So we've taken kind of both of these PDFs and kind of put them together into one email.
Best of both worlds, huh, Jason?
Yeah. So I think it'll be a great resource for you, especially if you want to take that to your next board meeting. You could also print out the executive summary. We'll put that in the email as well. So we'll have the 3 different things you can download. You can print those out, take them to your board meeting and say, look, the board should be involved in fundraising. The board can be involved in fundraising by doing a vision dinner. and look at all the ways that the board can be involved. Now, the board might be pushing back and, we like just sitting and giving advice, but really, if the board is serious about growing your mission and vision, they should be excited about this. And as the executive director, you can use these episodes, hopefully, to help them realize that they should be doing a little bit more. And we're really trying to make this as easy as possible, because honestly, if you sign up for the Perfect Vision Dinner Mentorship Program, we spoon feed you what you should do. There's all the work has been done. All you got to do is show up for a weekly call,
everything,
and watch videos and fill out workbooks, and we spoon feed it all to you.
Give you even the slides for your presentations. I mean,
everything is done.
It's done. Jason, one of the greatest compliments that I could get in working with board members is when the board member says, Jim, we used to spend every meeting worried about how we're going to make payroll. Because of the Vision Dinner, now we can start to dream big dreams. One of the greatest compliments that I ever could get.
Yeah, no, it's great. Well, if you've enjoyed this episode, let us know in the comments. We would love to know just what you thought of this episode. We'd love it if you would subscribe. If you're not subscribed to this YouTube channel, or you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple, go ahead and hit subscribe, because then you'll get notified of the next episode. So there's a lot of great episodes coming, so make sure you subscribe. And also, we talked a lot about the Perfect Vision Dinner Mentorship Program, and if you are interested in that, we are 5 weeks away from our next program starting. Starts May 5th, 2025. And we do this twice a year. Okay. So this isn't something that you can just sign up for whenever. It's more like a college program, where it's like the best of both worlds, right? There's a live component. We do weekly live calls between you and I. And then we unlock pre-recorded content where people go through and they watch all the content. And then we have a workbook. We have a community. So we have a mobile app, so there's a lot of things that we've put together for you. Like I said,
only so many spots available, Jason. So it's really important that our listeners sign up quickly.
Very, very limited space. Because we're working privately with people, we can only work with so many. So if you haven't done so yet, go to our website, scan the QR code, fill out the application. It doesn't cost anything to apply. But then once you fill out the application, one of our team members will get in touch with you, because we want to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into. And we only want people in the program that are committed to actually doing this model. Because we want to see you succeed. We got a lot of people that have already filled out the application, and we only select the best of the applications. So definitely get your name in there and apply, and we will take a look at that, book a call with you, and hopefully you will be selected to be a part of the next Perfect Vision Dinner Mentorship Program. Well, Jim, any final words on this topic on boards and getting board members involved in the Vision Dinner?
Well, it's just so important. I mean, board members are your first line of defense. If you are an executive director, if you're in any leadership position in a nonprofit, you need your board members to come alongside you and help to undergird, just as the leaders came alongside Moses as he was battling the Amalekites, as Joshua was battling down in the valley in the book of Exodus. So it's so important that your board members come alongside and help you. And this is exactly one of those ways, 9 ways to be exact.
Well, thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Take care.